You have stopped before you needed to. This is one of the most important things William James believed about human beings, and he spent a significant portion of his career trying to explain why it is true and what we can do about it. In his 1907 essay, The Energies of Men, James opened with an observation that is simultaneously obvious and profound. Most people, he wrote, live habitually within certain limits of their powers. These limits are not physiological absolutes. They are psychological boundaries, thresholds of effort and discomfort that have been established by habit, convention, and low expectation, and that most of us never seriously test. James described human energy as coming in layers. The first layer is what normal daily life draws upon. When that layer is spent, we feel tired, and in ordinary circumstances that fatigue signal is sufficient to stop us. We rest, we recover, we return to the same level the next day. This is not wrong. It is sensible management of a limited resource under normal conditions. But James's crucial point is that the first layer is not the only layer. Below it, largely inaccessible under normal conditions, lie additional reserves of energy and capacity that remain untouched for most people throughout their entire lives. How do we know these deeper reserves exist? James pointed to the evidence that surrounds us. The person who has lived a quiet life for decades and then faces a genuine emergency discovers they can run farther, think faster, bear more pain, and make better decisions under pressure than they ever imagined. The grieving widow who somehow organizes a household, raises children, and returns to work after a loss that seemed unsurvivable. The athlete who, on the verge of collapse, hears the crowd and produces a sprint that hours of training never suggested was possible. The soldier who performs acts of endurance under combat conditions that would be literally inconceivable in peacetime. These are not exceptions or miracles. They are revelations of capacity that was always there but rarely reached under ordinary conditions. The emergency did not create new energy. It broke through the barriers that normally confine us to the first layer. James identified several mechanisms capable of breaking through those barriers. The most obvious is necessity, genuine crisis that removes the option of stopping. When stopping means certain death or catastrophic loss, the body and mind find resources that discretionary fatigue could not reach. But necessity is not the only key. James was equally interested in what he called second wind, the experience, familiar to endurance athletes and long-distance walkers, of passing through a period of acute discomfort and arriving on the other side at a state of renewed, sometimes even elevated energy. Second wind is psychologically important because it reveals that the first fatigue signal is not a warning that reserves are exhausted. It is a warning that the first layer is spent and the second layer is about to be demanded. If we are willing to pass through the discomfort of the transition, new energy becomes available. The signal is not stop. It is change gears. James was also fascinated by the energy-unlocking power of strong belief and strong purpose. Religious conviction, patriotic fervor, passionate commitment to a cause, these could sustain levels of effort and endurance that ordinary motivation could not approach. He did not think this was a religious mystery. He thought it was a psychological fact about how meaning and motivation interact with the body's resource allocation. When something matters enough, when a goal is genuinely important enough to the whole person, the organism commits resources it otherwise withholds. This has practical applications in education, athletics, medicine, and ordinary life. James's framework suggests that what we call lack of motivation is often not a shortage of energy but a lack of adequate reason to spend the deeper layers. The student who cannot bring themselves to study is not necessarily lazy in some essential sense. They have not yet found the connection between the work and something that matters enough to unlock the reserves. The question to ask is not how to force effort but how to find meaning. James was careful not to reduce this to a simple inspirational message. He acknowledged that genuine exhaustion is real, that the deeper layers are not infinite, and that pushing past proper limits causes harm. His argument was not that fatigue should be ignored, but that the first fatigue signal is routinely misread as a final limit when it is actually a first threshold. Wisdom lies in learning to distinguish between the signal that says change gears and the signal that says stop. Both are real. They feel similar from the inside, but they are not the same. The question James leaves us with is both uncomfortable and invigorating. Not what are my limits? We rarely approach them. The better question is, what would it take to find out? Subscribe to The Psychology of William James to explore more of his timeless ideas.